All right, we are live, and I'm joined by Ben Raya.
What's up, my man?
I'm chilling, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm
So,
excited to be here.
Just some context, Ben and I met actually randomly at a sauna at a gym here in Boulder at Crunch.
Yep.
And then we met each other again when I burst into the door here at the podcast studio and didn't know someone was recording in here. And we met and was like, dude, you look familiar. And it was just like, bro, do you want to be on my podcast? Straight fresh off of a different podcast. And he said, yeah. So here we are. So yeah, again, Ben, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be a really, really cool conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. That was like a really serendipitous moment, both of them actually, but just coming out of a podcast with my brother talking about really deep men's work stuff, which is like one big part of my life, and then bumping into you all about Tantra, sacred sexuality, spirituality, all of that, which is the other big part of my life. So I was like, cool, boom, boom, the two big things I care most about. Beautiful. And I remember going home from that conversation and telling my partner, I was like, I just had the most deep ass sauna conversation with some random cats in the sauna.
Yeah, no, that was great. And again, so I want to let you introduce yourself because you have a really interesting set of skills and sort of background. So yeah, Ben, what do you do?
What do? I teach classical and modern Tantra, a distinction we'll go into shortly. I teach men's work and embodiment. I teach relationship skills to couples with my partner. And I would say, yeah, the overall project of my life is awakening in partnership.
Awakening within partnership.
Within partnership.
Yeah, that sounds
like
really
relationship as a technology for how we can actually fast track the project of healing and awakening, which does not mean it necessarily gets more pleasurable. It gets a lot more fucking intense. It gets way more harsh.
Bro, because for me, my whole spiritual path was mostly alone, actually. It was like this solo traveling in India and at Zen centers, and it was not in relationship. And then when I came back and had my first serious relationship, bro, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I couldn't apply it at all. And all of a sudden I'm back to being 12 years old and a hurt little boy. And I'm like, what the fuck happened?
100%. That's something my partner Lorinda and I talk about a lot, and that's very, very common. Is we do kind of the first half of the project, which is off in Thailand or Bali or a bunch of retreats, and it's all very much working on self, which is crucial. We have to do that. But then we're like, oh, cool. I healed my mommy wound and my daddy wound, and I healed my attachment stuff, and my nervous system is so regulated and blah, blah, blah. And I'm having these transcendent experiences. And then you get into partnership, like you said. And it's oh, shit, that was all just the appetizer.
Yeah.
Here's the real meal. And some of the bites are amazing, and some of the bites taste like shit.
And that's well said. That's how it's gotta be, bro. And that's the thing. In intimate relationships, that's when you get just crazy. You seeing your old projections. You're seeing just this person mirroring you in so many ways, and all this stuff is coming up. Is it me? Is it them? What's really good? And do I leave or do I stay? What's the mood? It's just so much intensity.
Yeah.
And I think it's it's like a pain portal. It's a crucible, right?
Yeah.
I think intensity, period, whether it's with somebody or solo, intensity is, again, it's a crucible. It's melting you down. A lot of the time, if you're lucky, it's melting you down. Yep. It's going to restructure you into something stronger, something better. And so I would love to get into that. First, I want to ask you, what is Tantra? So this is a word that gets thrown around a lot in spiritual circles. So what is Tantra? What isn't Tantra? You talked about sort of modern Tantra versus classical. So I want to give you the floor to speak on that.
Yeah. So every time I answer this question, it comes out differently. And every time I answer this question, I start by saying this could easily be a series of 2-hour lectures, probably given by someone different than myself, and it would still be incomplete. So just framing that first, of even attempting to answer the question, what is Tantra? As you know, as a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, like you're already going down the wrong path when you're trying to answer what something is. And yet here we are with like bodies and language and brains and ideas, and we still have to talk about stuff.
It'll be inherently incomplete.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
We're going to give it our best shot.
We're going to give it our best shot.
Because I feel like a lot of people don't actually know what it is. We think Tantra is some esoteric thing that, you know, sex queens are practicing in Bali, and it sounds pretty lit. Maybe they're levitating. Maybe you nut 10 times in a row and you don't know what happened and you wake up on the street.
Or maybe according to the scriptures, you don't nut 10,000 times in a row and then you get superpowers.
That's
right?
What I'm talking about.
That's like, you know, that's within the scope of things that might be believed in Tantra. It's like, oh yeah, if you withhold orgasm for 10,000 copulations, then you start to get superpowers. And I've never made it to 10,000, so I don't know.
Someone has hit me up on Instagram about that and being like, this was like, with a pretty decent following, who is like a Tantra lady, and she was like, I'm just waiting for the miracles, let me know when they happen. And I was like, what? Can you tell me more about that? She's like, no, I can't, just let me know when they happen. And I was like, ooh, interesting. Anyways, all
right, so back to the question.
Yeah, what is Tantra?
So the first distinction I'll make that I already alluded to is classical Tantra and neo-Tantra, or modern Tantra, new Tantra, right? Is the distinction that many of us are trying to carve out a little more space in the modern dialogue. Because like you said, that word just gets thrown around and it can mean like 500 different things. And people show up to our workshops genuinely like not knowing what they've gotten themselves into. They're like, are we going to have sex? Like we had one workshop, a Fundamentals of Tantra workshop, where on the same day, one person left because they thought we were just going to meditate and do breath work for 8 hours, 2 days in a row. And they were like, why are we feeling our feelings? Why are we relating to each other? Why are we expressing our anger? Why are we getting in touch with the body? I want to transcend and go up. And another person left because they thought it was going to be like a facilitated sex party. And they're like, why aren't we fucking each other?
Lame.
So like there you have kind of the bookends of the entire spectrum of what someone might mean when they say the word Tantra.
Right.
So from the classical perspective, it is a tradition of spiritual practice, embodiment practice, aimed at awakening into life. And it originated sort of in the Kashmir Valley. Again, there's like 10,000 distinctions and rabbit holes we could go through, but that's where it's most known. It's from the Kashmir Valley in India. About 1,200 years ago was when it really started to pop off. And it was a tradition kind of in response to a lot of the cultural religious themes that were there then, which was versions of spirituality that had a whole bunch of holiness codes. Like you can't do this, you can't do this. If you touch meat, you're unclean. If you touch a woman when she's bleeding, you're unclean. If you drink wine, you're unclean. All these rules of, you know, if you want to be in the presence of divinity, you have to clean yourself up first. And so it was in response to that kind of atmosphere. And also in response to a lot of religious traditions, just like we have now, that are really only interested with trying to figure out how the hell to get out of the human experience.
Yeah. How
to transcend, how to escape, how to die and go to heaven, how to find enlightenment. They're all just different versions of being like, this here right now is a problem and I'm trying to get out of it.
Yes. Get me the fuck out of here.
Get me out of here.
Someone, I'll pay
Which
you
is
good
like
money, I'll do the practice.
Really sad when you put it that plainly, that most people spend their entire lives trying to get out of life.
To get somewhere other than where we are right now.
Right.
It's so interesting.
And so it was in response to that climate that this tradition sprung up that was very radical. It's called the left-handed path often, because it was, you know, the right hand is all the do this, don't do that, all these rules and prohibitions and all these ways to be sanctimonious. And they were like, cool, we're going to do the opposite of that. You say only to eat with your right hand, we're going to eat with our left hand, just to prove a point to my own subconscious that there's no thing I can do that disconnects me from my divinity.
Yes. There's a verse that I think it's a Zen patriarch, actually, the fourth Zen patriarch, his death poem, he says, separate heaven and earth by a hair's width, and they are set infinitely apart. Infinitely. Yeah. So what I see with Tantra, again, where we're getting into the human experience instead of trying to find a way out, is actually, it's the merging of the dualities of sacred and profane, merging heaven and earth. Actually, when we say, I eat with my left hand, I have, crazy sex. In Tibetan Tantra, they will like drink out of human skulls. No, in order to...
I've done that.
You've done that? What? Whoa. That's sick. So that's the thing. It's about taking these things that seem unholy and actually recognizing them as maybe another face of God. And it's like, it's so beautiful. So...
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy rituals that are... But it's not like... It's... In the original context, it wasn't so much of like... Oh, the goal is to eat a bunch of raw meat and drink a bunch of wine and just get completely turned and go wild. The point was, can I decondition every belief I have that doing this thing is more sacred than this other thing?
Yeah.
Can I completely collapse the duality? And like you said, for a while, it feels like you're trying to bring heaven and earth back together. You're trying to bring dark and light back together. You're trying to bring body and spirit back together. And then at some point, it's this deeper integration of like really truly understanding that they haven't ever been apart.
Yes. Woo! And again, so recognizing, again, from the Buddhist sense, any sort of distinction between heaven and earth is going to be always made up in your mind.
Right.
It's not objectively there.
Right.
This is the kingdom. This is nirvana right now when you're not making distinctions. And I think that's part of the really poetic and really pragmatic just use of Tantra is you see so much like conditioning, like you said, conditioning in our culture, just many cultures around the world that say certain things are sacred, certain things are not. And thus heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. Make sure you fall make sure you're on the good side or else. And so I want to open up this question about conditioning in our culture today. We swim in these waters. We live in this world where at least a certain degree of repression of sexuality, but repression in general, repression of authenticity in various ways is normalized. It seems like that's just how things are. That's the quote unquote right way to do things. And I just want to open up this question to you, being a tantric practitioner, exploring sexuality deeply and intentionally. In our culture today, again, first off, what is conditioning us? What is conditioning us to reject, again, this really human, really necessary part of our experience, of our biology? What's causing us to reject it? And like, what do we do about that?
Whew. That's a big question. Let's go.
That's why I'm giving it to you, my man. I'll take it when you're ready. But
so conditioning is a fascinating thing because on some level it's necessary. And I think for me, like a whole aspect of the awakening process within the tantric framework is simultaneously realizing how necessary the constructs of the mind are to function in the world, right? Because I think we all know a lot of spiritual people that quote unquote woke up and they're literally just useless. They cannot function, cannot hold down a job, cannot relate to other people, right? There's this whole thing going on, and it's like really cool to, have a transcendent experience and realize it's all one thing and that you're God and so is everybody else. And that's really fucking cool. And like someone has to feed my kid.
Yep. Right.
And somebody has to go to my job tomorrow, and ideally it's me.
For sure.
Well, I have my own job, but anyways, so it's like this simultaneous project because again, like Tantra does not seek to throw away the mind because it's necessary to function here. Some traditions are like, fuck it, go live in a cave.
Right.
Go throw away everything, relationship, jobs, culture, money, throw it all away and just go live in a cave. You don't need your mind in a cave. But again, the tantric project and its classical and modern framework is how do I most gloriously exist as a human? And to do that, I need my mind. I need my mind to talk to you right now. And so it's that, and it's realizing how much all these dualistic thoughts, because like you said, the mind is a razor. It cuts everything in half and says, oh, this is light and that's dark. That distinction only makes sense if you cut it in half and push one this way and push the other that way. And to realize how much that thing, even though it's necessary, is simultaneously completely fucking us over all the time.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's just recognizing that the world we're experiencing, when we experience light and dark, we need to recognize that we created that.
Right.
We created that distinction and we projected it onto the world. And we just think, oh, this is just how things are, forgetting that previous step, which was that you made the delineation.
Right.
And that's the thing. Recognize we made that. It's not inherently there. We made it, and then it gets projected onto this blank canvas of a world. And it seems real because it is. Because the thoughts, the conceptions, the stories in our mind are reality. There is no designation between the imagination, and reality. Your mind, they're one thing. You will never get to an experience of the world or yourself that exists beyond your imagined conceptual experience of it. And that's fluid.
100%.
And that's malleable. And I want to just, again, echo the sentiment of honoring those really conceptions, the mind, honoring it. But first, recognizing this is your mind. This is the mind. And our minds are being, the word I use is monocropped. The mind is being fit into this mold and no one questions it, or you're weird and you get kicked out of the tribe. And that's what they want, because they want to monocrop your mind.
Right.
And guess what that leads to? A lack of diversity of ways of thinking, ways of being, even though we have access to infinite creative potential because we are the creators right now. Right. We have access to that, but we actually close it down and say, oh, no, this is the only world that is real that I have access to. And if you say so, because you're the creator, and so it is. Okay, you make a world where really you've given your power away. And so there is, I think, a real benefit for certain powerful systems to really repress actually our own creative thought, our own understanding of actually the mind and the fabricated nature of everything that we're experiencing.
100%. Because, yeah. That's exactly where I'm going. So I'm glad you went there so well. The very same mental constructs that are useful for us to understand reality can be injected into us, and they become the constraints within which reality is allowed to exist.
And we need to recognize how incredibly impactful these stories are.
Yeah.
Think about the closeted gay folks living in the Bible Belt. Okay, these are stories that are making your life fucking a living hell. Literally, the amount of shame that we hold, the amount of anger, the amount of confusion that some people hold based on these conditioned ideas of right and wrong.
Yeah.
We think this is just how things are. Shit, I'm on the wrong side. I'm gay. I'm, not fitting into the mold. Whatever it is. It's like, these are conditioned stories. There's nothing wrong with anything you could ever be, fundamentally and objectively.
Right.
It's your subjective story that there's something wrong with my expression.
Right.
And I think there's that almost seems satanic in a sense, because you're saying, okay, an expression of one of the many faces of God is fundamentally wrong. That seems like grade A dog shit. And whoever told you that, let's just say you need to maybe question that person's perspective, that person's knowledge. Where did they learn that from? Are you so certain you want to buy into that story?
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with stories. But what we'll recognize through playing with the stories is that some lead to shame, some lead to repression, oppression, some lead to, I would say even like cancer, to be honest, when you hold certain destructive stories. And other stories lead to confidence, empowerment, inner peace, connection to the divine and to the people around you. And these are based on conceptuality. And so there's nothing wrong with stories, but recognize we are constructing them all, and then pick your story. Recognize that you will never come to one that's fundamentally more real than any other. Because again, imagination and reality can start to blend and merge. But pick your story and try them on like clothes. That's what I always say. It's like, try on this outfit of a story. Who am I today? Am I the king? Or you can play with archetypes. Am I the Joker? Am I the magician? Who am I today? How would I carry myself if I was the magician versus the king? A different archetypal expression. And recognizing that all of them are empty. You don't have to cling to a certain, again, a notion of who Ben is.
Right.
Recognizing it's all fluid like that. And so I want to just bring this back to conditioning and to stories, just to full circle it and say, if you are experiencing suffering, first step is understanding what's the story that's causing that. What's my conditioned belief? Because a lot of times we don't even know. And a lot of times we're so afraid of the stories that are causing suffering that we actually just ignore them, push them away, try to drink them away, fall into like whatever, sex addiction, behavioral addictions, anything to avoid looking at this painful story that seems like a fact and recognizing it's not a fact. It's this path of inquiry of like, who am I in Eastern traditions, as far as also inquiring into your stories. Are these real? This notion of who I am I real? Is this place real? And how do I know? Who told me? Who am I listening to? Who am I giving that power to? There's so much like profound freedom that can be found through that path. And so this brings me to sexuality in our culture and what seems like a really deep repression of it. And I had a podcast yesterday with somebody who was saying that actually our sexual expression is rooted in the expression of all of our character. Actually, it's fundamentally linked to everything that we are. And when we repress sexuality, we're repressing, again, ourselves. And who is that self? It's creation. It's the creator. It's the divine trying to live through us, trying to breathe through us. And again, I think like a lot of things get all fucked up when we start to repress and push away those desires, that creative spark.
Well, I'm sure you know, and I think anyone who wants to can kind of look out at the world and realize this for themselves, that repression only ever leads to obsession. And like once you get that, then you're just like, what the hell are we doing and why?
I love that.
And I want to like dig into that more, because one of the things that Tantra is for me, and this isn't necessarily like, you know, there's kind of a blend. We're like slowly answering the question of classical versus modern Tantra. And I love how we're weaving this through the whole thing. You know, there's what were the stated goals and practices of the original tradition. And then there's also kind of like, if you do that and it changes you, what does that change about the way you meet life? And what does that look like? And one of those things for me is that it really becomes a practice of turning towards all the things we were told are too hot to touch, like money, power, sexuality, influence, fame. And it doesn't mean I'm now obsessed with fame or influence or money or power or any of these things. It's that when you notice that repression not only leads to obsession, but it leads to unskillfulness. So, you know, this is where Tantra and Jungian depth psychology really weave together beautifully in his concepts of the shadow, and this idea that if there's something innate about me, let's just stay with sexuality. I'm a highly sexual person, but then I'm born into this world and this world says, no, you're not supposed to be that. And I'm like, all right, I'll try really hard not to be that. And it doesn't actually go away. It just gets further away from my conscious idea of myself. Perhaps and most likely to the point where I don't even know it's there anymore.
And this becomes like the unconscious
shadow. This becomes the unconscious shadow in Jung's world. And in ways, I think, in Tantra was figuring these things out also and speaking of them differently, that these parts of ourself that we don't realize we are. And so the problem with that is twofold. A, that it doesn't go away. It doesn't stop yearning to express itself. It's just doing it in ways that I'm not aware of, which is even worse. And therefore, if I can't pick up and practice using this part of my innate nature, then it's only ever going to come out badly, unskillfully, in unattuned ways. And then that becomes additional ammunition for this cultural story that thing is bad.
Whoa.
So it's like I turn away from my sexuality. I don't learn, you know, all the stuff that's thankfully becoming more present in the collective. I don't learn attunement. I don't learn energetic self-mastery. I don't learn how to actually please my partner so she's excited about sex instead of being like, oh God, fine, so you'll shut up about it. Right. You know, which is unfortunately most of the world, you know, are these really unsatisfying sexual experience where one or both people don't even really like what just happened, but it's all they know how to do.
Right. They don't know there's another
and then
way.
They're just frustrated and repressed, and there's all this sideways energy, and it's a shit show, and one or both people get hurt. People don't know how to manage their turn on. You know, a lot of men get turned on by a pretty woman, and it's somehow her fault. And then religion's like, well, the way to manage my turn on is to manage how you dress.
Yeah. Again.
Instead of being like, wow, what if we just fucking turn towards this thing and learn how to do it?
Yeah.
What if we just say it's part of being alive? So when we repress stuff, it just turns into this really vicious feedback loop where nobody knows how to do it. Nobody can really control when or how it comes out.
Right.
It always goes badly. And then that reconfirms the story that it's bad and we shouldn't have touched it in the first place.
Totally.
Wouldn't life just be better if I just never got turned on? And the only way to do that is to control everybody else.
Yeah. And I
instead of learning how to control myself.
It's so obvious. And I think a big part of the spiritual path could be generally just laid out as this is a warrior's path. You're going towards the discomfort instead of away from it. It's like, instead of taking the woman I love and, you know, if she's attracting attention from guys, I'm like, instead of saying, hey, maybe go put on a jacket, why don't you own that? Why don't you talk to her about it? Why don't you give her a chance to show up for you and hold you in that? Instead of, again, for me, it's like, we're not trying to keep people small.
Right.
If we're trying to lift everyone up, we're trying to all become big together. Rising tide raises all ships. And that's what I feel like. If you can own that and move towards that discomfort internally, that's when you can like really help other people do the same. And I just want to reference my friend Mars, shout out Mars, who really turned me on to a more, before I never had any experience with polyamory. And now I feel like just being with her and recognizing she's not gonna be with me in a monogamous dynamic.
Yeah.
And is that okay? What comes up for me? If she, again, wants to go be sexual with other people, what comes up for me? And can I hold that?
Right.
Can I hold that?
Right.
And that's a question. When I say yes and I can, I was sobbing to my therapist talking about this last week or a couple of weeks ago, where I was like, dude, I had this part of me that was so wounded. I never thought that would be possible, where I could really love love somebody.
Yeah.
And then be okay with them to get their needs met from another person. And now I was crying tears of joy. I was like, dude, I can't believe like I was able to heal myself, and now this part is comfortable. And I feel so whole in myself, where I'm like, she can do whatever she needs to. I'm still whole. And I know it, I feel it. And that's where the tears came from. And that's a product of turning towards, of saying, shit, what is this? And that's been my spiritual path for like 5+ years, like turning towards all of it. Where is it?
Right.
Where are the contractions in the psyche? Where's the darkness? Where are the unapproachable things? And you start to clear out enough of that gunk through, again, holding these things. When you're able to accept and open to the contractions in your psyche, you fundamentally transform them. They're no longer contractions.
Right.
You're good with it. It's so when I've done that enough, all of a sudden you realize this world can't touch you. It's all in your mind. Clear out the cobwebs in your mind, deal with the contractions in there, learn how to open to the unopenable, how to accept the unacceptable, and all of a sudden, this world can't touch you. And that's really what I see as like the fruit of that path, as far as really going into, again, like you said, something about approaching the unapproachable. And you start to become, for me, it's like this growing feeling of, obviously there's layers to this and levels to this, but like almost like I feel invincible. Like, what's going to touch me other than my own mental contractions? Like, this world can't hurt you. Your mind is what's hurting you. And that's such a fundamental shift.
It's huge. And it's terrifying and offensive to most, you know.
Say more to that.
Because like when you're on the other side of that shift, like, it's so clear to me. And in my opinion, this is one of the most offensive claims that the classical tradition makes, that all suffering exists in the mind. You know, there's pain. Pain is a thing. If you punch me in the face, it physically hurts. But then I stack more suffering on top of that by believing the story that shouldn't have happened.
Boom.
Oh, that was a bad thing. Instead of it was just a thing, and this is what it feels like right now. This is what it feels like to be God existing as Ben in this present moment. My face hurts. And that's that's one layer of unenjoyable experience. It doesn't even need to be unenjoyable. Like you could just go full on existential kink and be like, oh my God, how much can I enjoy the throbbing sensation in my left cheek right now?
It's true though.
And you can, and you can turn like, but it's so offensive in this world where like, we're all just like suffering and you do this thing to me. And I believe all these things that shouldn't have happened or blah, blah, blah. And Tantra is the practice of becoming intimate with reality. Like intimate, like, oh, it's like right here. And when I can do that and I can get out of my stories of reality should be something different than what it is. And my idea of what the world should be is somehow better than what the world simply is. And when I can release that and just get in contact with what's here and let the pain hurt and let the bliss feel good and let everything in between those two things just be alive. And it doesn't need my condemnation and it doesn't need my approval.
Yes.
It's just what's here.
And I again, when we compare our experience right now to something that, you know, from the past or something we wish would happen in the future, we're actually just separating ourselves from the perfection of the moment right now. And all of these moments are fundamentally perfect, and you can taste that. You can really drink that perfection, which has a huge impact on the being just by saying this is okay. Right. Deeply okay right now.
It's deeply okay.
Whatever's coming up, and that means the feelings in your body, and that can mean lack, that can mean anger, that can mean jealousy. They have a place. There are messages from places beyond us. And can we say that's okay? If God wants to speak to me like that, and it's up to you. And that's the thing. What is the outcome if I reject the feelings in my body, the thoughts in my mind, the external circumstances and experiences that are happening to me? If I reject those and say, oh, I wish it was different. I wish I had more money. I wish I had more friends. I wish things could be different. If you pay attention to that experience in real time, you can feel suffering. You can feel contraction and actually pain in your body.
Yeah. And if you're like brave enough to look for it, because again, like there's a layer of comfort in like clinging to our beliefs and clinging to our judgments. And there's this like, you know, there's this sense of reality that it really is true that the world should be this other way than what's clearly actually right here. And it's hard for people to see that. It's like scary to let go of this essentially delusion that I cling to in my own mind about how things should be, and to realize the power of my own perspective. Like I can literally just ruin absolutely everything. Every single thing that ever happens, I can ruin all of it just by saying, I don't like this.
Yes.
This isn't good enough. Exactly. I mean, that's the real one. That's the like bastard in the background is like the power of judgment. I mean, I can literally discard every single thing that life brings my way and say it's not good enough. No, this isn't it. This isn't God. This isn't sacred. You can just carve the world up and throw away every single fucking piece.
And that's the thing. We have a role to play in that. Life is not just given to us. We are co-creating this in every way. So asking the question, where am I rejecting life? Where am I saying, you know what, life, yeah, you're pretty dope. You're kind of beautiful sometimes, but you're just not enough for me right now. Sorry. Yeah. It's like we're in a relationship with this place. We're in a relationship
with life and just be like, I'm sorry, it's not me, it's you.
Yeah, legitimately. And it's like, how do you think life is going to respond to that? It's like when you reject life, it kind of rejects you back, actually. Yeah. When you open to life, it tends to open to you back in interesting ways. And also, you could say from a non-dual perspective, because there's no separation.
Yeah, and that's where like non-duality gets like really fucked in like a good way, but it's definitely fucked. Is you're like, okay, the only thing I'm ever actually experiencing is my own expression of yes or no. Yeah. And yes feels really good and no feels really bad. And I can say no to everything and everything will feel bad. And most people can at some point like get on board with that. They're like, okay, yeah, I can see how when I like contract and push stuff away that it intensifies the negative experience. But then if that's true, the opposite also must be true. And that's really hard to get on board with. Where like I can literally just open And it does take practice. It takes internal condition. It takes like so many of the classical practices, and even like the modern sexuality stuff and the relational stuff is really like, how much capacity can I build in my own nervous system, in my psyche, in my energetic body? How much capacity can I build towards the goal of there's not a single thing that I can't say yes to? Even the absolute worst fucking thing, like it's happening. Me saying no doesn't change what's here right now.
Thank you for saying
but
that.
Like building the capacity where like, and again, like I grew up Christian, and that was, you know, all sorts of problems and benefits and whatever. But there's like one thing I've hung on to is this, like the story of actually, you know, Jesus getting his ass beat and murdered basically. And that it talks about how this was like the full revelation of God. And that it's described as the passion of Christ, is to like be in like literally one of the worst ways to die that humanity has ever come up with, and just be like, all right, yes.
Dude, and I was talking about this on my last podcast actually, is like at a certain intensity, it seems like pain and love start to actually merge and become one thing. Yeah, and that pain,
because it's all just like contact with the beloved.
Yeah, exactly. It's contact with the beloved. And the more deeply that you allow yourself to open to pain, the more deeply you actually in real time opening yourself up to love. They come together. When you reject pain and you close down the heart to pain, you're also closing down your heart to love. And that's the thing. I think the Christ and at this point, the imaginal image of Jesus Christ being crucified,
right?
It just represents the merging of pain and pleasure. As pain, that ultimate sacrifice, is actually just an avenue into a deeper experience of love, of merging with the divine. Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful. How can we take that image, that story on in our lives and have it be pragmatic? Where am I hurting right now? Where am I saying this isn't okay?
Yeah.
And I think so much of mental health issues like depression, anxiety, if you pay close attention to both of those experiences, and I've been in, you know, crippling panic attacks and crippling depression, there is always a no involved. There's some sort of rejection. Yeah. There cannot be anxiety or depression at all if you're not saying this is unacceptable.
Right.
You have to be saying, this is not what I like. This is not how I want my life to go. No. And then it's almost like a cramp in the psyche where it locks up and no, this, and now it hurts. And because it hurts, you actually resist it more. Right. And it cramps up even harder. And that's the thing. It's like the little just moment where you can say, you know what? Yes. So what if for me, I was like, when I was hella depressed, it was like, what if I'm a loser? I can't just connect with people socially anymore. What if I just have to, you know, work at a gas station my whole life? Fuck it. Yes, I have no choice. And that again, it's accepting the unacceptable. And only when I could do that, could that depression start to move a little bit and actually move out of my system. And again, with anxiety, it's like, what are we anxious of? Things not going the way that we like.
Right.
And when you're in this more tantric, non-dual perspective, when you can say yes to anything, what could you be afraid of? Because you're not going to lock up in the psyche in the same way when you can just accept whatever flows. And that's the thing. Just recognize in those mental health, issues, turmoil, asking the question, where am I saying no? And can I say yes to this? Same with trauma.
Or even, you know, like, can I get 5% more on board with what's going on right now?
Totally.
You know, and start to I love the phrase like microdosing reality.
I like that. Yeah.
You know, because it can be hard when like no is so conditioned in the body to be like, all right, can I just say yes to the fact that like my relationship is collapsing or whatever it is, I just lost my job.
Exactly.
You know, that can be hard to just be like, all right, yeah. Sometimes you get, you know, sometimes you just get that like pop and it happens.
Exactly.
But I think the like small practice of like, can I just get 5% more on board with what's happening right now?
Totally. For me, it was like almost like a Satori type moment where something like snapped in my being like permanently.
Yeah.
And it was just like, fuck it. Yeah. I have no choice. I've been saying no forever. And I'm like, I've had enough of this. It wasn't even conscious like that. It was so like somatic and nonverbal. It was just like a release. And I was like, oh. And again, that my life changed permanently. That was when I was at the ashram in India, very serendipitous during COVID. But Yeah. So basically, I want to go back to the distinction between classical Tantra, which I guess we could generally say is, again, not trying to transcend the human experience, but to subscend, to get deeply into it, to sink our teeth into this thing going on right now. And then what would the modern expression of Tantra be in contrast?
So the modern expression of Tantra nowadays, increasingly referred to as Neo-Tantra, is most of what people think of when they hear the word Tantra. You know, all the way, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but like back in the 90s, the musical artist Sting, you know, he kind of put Tantra on the map because, you know, there's some articles and started talking about like, oh yeah, having these like 4 to 6 hour lovemaking sessions with my wife. And that's when I like really tap into the creativity and we do tantric practice. And like, that's all that anybody heard. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, 4 hours of sex. All right, cool. Sign me up. Yeah, for sure. And so it's like pretty hard to track through time kind of where these deviations, I don't want to call them deviations. It's just like my teacher kind of refers to it as they're now essentially like two parallel traditions that share the same word. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so the modern version is very, very focused on pleasure, on sexuality, on relationship, often on polarity, you know, like masculine, feminine, energetics, and relational stuff. And it's all held within a kind of a spiritual framework. But this is my criticism, there's often not actually a lot of substance when you push into the spiritual side of the modern wing of Tantra. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's a lot of like, it's in a way it's like the dessert without the meal.
Yeah.
Because the real transcendent bliss we're after isn't something the ego can participate in. And that's what's missing to me in Neo-Tantra spaces. It's like, yeah, connecting to your pleasure is great. Connecting to your divinity is amazing. Connecting to like how good life can be, connecting to the sacredness of everything is great. But if I haven't had any practices of how do I move beyond identification with the small version of myself that only lives within inside this body, then the wrong part of me is having all those experiences. Yes. And in a way, the worst thing that can happen, and that's why some of these modern Tantra spaces really turn into a shit show, is because the worst thing that can happen is the ego thinks it's God.
Yeah, and then you're all fucked
up. And then you're all fucked up. And then you're a cult leader. And now, you know, so it's like, it's all of these realizations that the original practice leads to were meant to be held within a really deep, structured, powerful, disruptive process of, can I identify ultimately with everything?
Exactly.
But at least, can I get outside of my own story of what I am, this little thing that's basically the central nervous system with like a name tag being like, oh, I'm Ben and my only initiative is preserving the life of Ben, and anything that supports Ben I view as good, and anything that doesn't support Ben I view as evil. And now this little scared thing that's trying to stay alive in a world of things that feel completely disconnected and separate from me thinks it's God.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So when we are staying in our own safe, cozy, egoic experience, we're actually just accepting and thus coping with a contraction of the psyche. And that contraction hurts. When you're identifying with small separation self, aka ego, again, if you tune in closely, it hurts. Like real time. It feels lonely, isolating. You're just afraid.
And like the meditation teacher Adyashanti, if you're familiar with him, he talks about it as like, and like you can feel it. He talks about it like it's like a clenched fist in the gut. Like right here, and the solar plexus, the third chakra, often like understood as like kind of the seat of the self, the seat of emotions, like the anchor of the soul from like lots of, and when we're in ego identification, that part of us is just like,
dance,
like it's like constipated and trying to take a shit. And
bro, exactly.
And it's like,
let that shit
and
out.
like at some point, like that thing you feel where all of a sudden it's just like, oh.
Exactly.
And you're like, wow, I've been spending so much energy just trying to maintain my concept of self, which requires a complementary worldview. So everything out there that isn't going the way I think it should, because it doesn't correspond with this thing I'm clenching to, my story of self, because they're mirrors of each other. So then I'm just exhausting myself trying to manage the world around me.
Totally.
So that I can continue holding on to this story of myself.
Exactly. And it's interesting, like we could call any sort of egoic identification as, it is suffering real time. It is a contraction. And then that kind of gives some weight to this pursuit of transcendence, at least to a point where there has to be something other than this.
Right. And
from my own experience, spending a lot of time, honestly, being informed by traditionally Theravadan Buddhism, which is, liberation for the individual. That's the main thrust of that school. And coming to that point of really transcendence, beyond the ego, saying, oh, it's all a story. So who am I beyond the story? Beyond any story, you will never find one. It's void.
It's void.
And that's the thing. Actually, a big part of spirituality is learning how to build a relationship to voidness, to the void. So we think it's like the number 0. Like before the Arabs came up with it, everyone's like, what the fuck is 0? I've never seen a 0. It doesn't exist. What are you talking about? But then you come up with this concept of 0, and all of a sudden, oh, it changes everything. Just like this concept of void. Right. Like, which is, it honestly is just necessary to balance the world. If there is a world of form, there must be a void to hold it, in a sense. And we don't have any relationship to that. And it's like, who are you beyond this self? And that's a valid question. So many people are like, I have no fucking idea. Perfect. That's the void. You don't know.
Right.
And can we build a relationship?
It's the not knowing. And this is, again, especially for me, like I can see how the classical teachings that, again, weren't, they included aspects of sexuality. They were like very specifically including the whole of the human experience, which therefore must include our erotic nature, our sexual enjoyment, all of these things. But it wasn't like anywhere close to the main point. But I can see how it ended up where it has, very focused on sexuality and pleasure. Because like even the void, which is very present in Kashmir Shaivism, Tantra, and again, like Tibetan Buddhism was highly influenced by Tantra. And, when you think of the void, what is it? It's an empty space. And what does an empty space want? It wants to be
penetrated,
filled.
Yes.
Wants to be penetrated. Exactly. And so in a very esoteric, energetic way, there's actually this like, you could make the argument, and I probably I will right now make the argument that the underpinning of the entirety of reality is the relationship between the everything penetrating and filling the nothing, between the light filling the darkness, but it's actually, back to what you said, the empty, the void is actually the ultimate thing. And that fucking terrifies people. Like when it clicks in your nervous system, it's one thing as an idea, but when it like clicks in your body, you're like, fuck, we are suspended in the void right now.
Right. And this brings me to the Heart Sutra, where they say form is emptiness. Emptiness is form.
Right.
How could they be both? The logical mind says these are two completely opposite things. And actually we see that this person I'm seeing in front of me right now, Ben, beyond the concepts, beyond the mind labeling Ben, beyond the mind taking this form and interpreting it, what's in front of me?
Right.
Void. So we're seeing the mind is constructing reality, and that doesn't mean that it's not real. That just means the mind is constructing it. Right. So this gets us into dependent origination, which is one of the main key points of Buddhism, in order to understand emptiness, where it's like, really for the world to arise, it's just dependent on certain conditions. Like actually the conditions of clinging. And I don't want to get into that too deeply, but the mind is actually clinging and shrink wrapping around, say, this thing called Ben in front of me. And as a result of that clinging, there's form, there's names, there's language, there's a person in front of me. And again, when we let go of all that clinging, we enter into these pretty deep void places. So actually, the void is present forever. Always. It has to be. And then at the same time, the form is also real. And the void and the form can start to blend and become one thing. And this is interesting. It's like, again, we say that the void wants to be penetrated by form. You can, primary dualities of masculine and feminine. We live in a cosmoerotic existence. Where the penetration is the word for it. It wants to be penetrated more deeply, to widen that penetration as well, over dimensionality of my experience. Like we're creating our world. And when I penetrate it by, like, again, creating a sense of self, for instance, how deeply can I create a sense of self? How vast and wide can my sense of self spread? And how fluid can it be? So there's this like longing, this desire that is just inherent in creation for that merging, that penetration. And I think at a certain intensity or a certain perspective, we could say actually the form and the void, they merge and become one. And actually there's no separation.
There's no separation.
And then language starts to fall apart and we enter into a really
starts to
trippy
fall
place.
apart.
Yeah.
And that's like the ascendant project, the transcendent project that you already kind of talked about, or we've talked about a few times. That's one of the areas where Tantra is the most unique, I think. Of all the things I know about, which I've taken a few laps around the block with spiritual shit. So there's a lot of transcendent spiritualities, a lot of enlightenment-based, heaven-based spiritualities where whatever we believe is good is somewhere other than here and now, and I'm trying to get away from here and go be there instead. And there's, the opposite of that would kind of be either paganism, earth-based practices, animistic practices, where it's really all about connecting to the earth, to the material, to what's here. And Tantra really is both, like truly. And, there's the fourth stage of the awakening, or the fourth version of reality, Turiya, if you're familiar with that phrase.
I've heard the word, I don't remember.
Sometimes used for enlightenment. It's when you transcend the world of waking, sleeping, and dreaming. And you transcend up into Turiya. And that's where many traditions stop. They're like, all right, you did it. And the thing is, and the other half of a lot of spiritualities don't make any attempt to get up there, to transcend the here and now, the space and time, the body and the stories and all of that, to transcend that. They don't make any attempt to do that. They're like, no, this is it. We're supposed to be here. But there's value, like you just said, there's value in getting that perspective, like going up to the mountaintop and being like, wow, everything looks really different from up here.
Yeah.
The thing is, beyond Turiya, there's Turiyatita, which literally just translates as beyond the fourth. And it's not a fifth higher state. It's the state when the fourth state permeates back down through waking, sleeping, and dreaming.
The integration, you could say.
Yeah, but it's literally like the ascending energetic, and everyone wants to unlock Kundalini and get the energy to pop through your crown, and it's the ascending thing is when form realizes its divinity.
Yes.
But then the opposite happens where divinity realizes its form, and then like you said, in the same way that emptiness is fullness and fullness is emptiness, that actually material and divinity are just constantly making love to each other. And there's in Tantra, the fifth place, the final place, is not transcendence. The fifth place is when the fourth thing fully permeates the first three. It's like going up to the mountain and gaining that perspective, understanding I'm God, you're God, everything is God. There isn't anything that isn't God. And then instead of just being like, all right, I live on top of the mountain now, it's like, oh, I'm going to see if I can take this all the way back down, which is actually way harder. Because as soon as you take one step down the mountain, the ego is like, what are you talking about? No, this rock isn't God. What are you talking about? No, my ex is not God. no, my mom's not God, you know. And so the ego, like the whole way back down the mountain, you just deal with like objection after objection after objection until the ego finally shuts the fuck up.
Exactly.
And then you're like, but the real project isn't up there, but you can't complete the project if you don't go up first.
Yeah, it's a part of the process.
It's part of the process.
Part of the process.
And it's where a lot of people quit.
Is in that ascent,
or they don't understand that's not the goal. The actual goal, the goal is like you start out, you end up right where you started. There's this great metaphor Alan Watts has where he says enlightenment is like you're standing out in a field and there's this doorway right in the field and the door is shut and the door is locked and you're like, I have to get through this door. And you rattle on the doorknob, you try to like slip your credit card through, you peer under it, and then finally you get the door to open and you step through the door. And then you turn around and there's no doorway and you're standing in the same field where you started, but you're no longer constrained by this belief that there's some door that you have to get through.
Exactly. And I think it is funny. I forget. I think it was Chogyam Trungpa, who said that enlightenment is the last great disappointment. And I think yes and no, actually, because again, you're coming back to exactly where you've always been. Always. Same you, same neuroses, same confusion, same whatever, weirdness, same trauma. But you have a very different relationship to it. And we're at again, it's another face of God. All of it. And it's like, same shit. It's same, but different kind of type deal. And again, it's like a lot of people cling, and again, clinging is suffering, to the notion of this transcendent spirituality, the transcendent end of the path. And I just want to say that any notion of path and the end of it is also only existing in your mind. So again, at that point, really, what do you want? Do you really want to chill on the mountaintop? Because like, bro, I love climbing mountains. I like chilling on the top. But you know what? I don't chill there forever. I come back down. And again, sort of integrate it. Because again, we can taste the beauty, the nourishment of the divine. We can drink from immortal waters right here in our life as it is right now. With kids, without kids, with weird job stuff going on, with difficult relationships. It's all, again, another face of the divine. And it's honestly, just for me, it's like a recognition at this point of like, oh, right. Yep. This is another face of the divine. Whether it's a person in front of me, whether it's a day when I'm in a mood and I'm just kind of pissed off because I haven't fapped in fucking 3 months because I'm on the semen retention wave and I'm just pissed. Oh, this is another face of God. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with, again, like anger, sadness, whatever, any difficulty. Can we, again, start to say yes to that in order to open that doorway to divinity in any experience? And that's a question. The answer is, can we? And I'll say, yes, you can. But then it's your choice. You know what I mean? And that's where this becomes a practice, right? Yeah. Where it builds like a muscle. Just first the mindfulness to be like, oh, I'm saying no right now. I'm saying this is not enough. I'm saying this isn't sacred. And then after you have the mindfulness, can I actually just switch my mind? Can I say, oh, wait, this is another face of God. And I'm a big fan of the divine. So I think this is going to be enough for me. Yeah, I think this is enough. Yeah. And then again, fundamentally, what you're experiencing transforms. Because you can say any suffering involved in any experience of suffering is going to be resistance, is going to be some sort of flavor of no. Right. And then can I just say yes? If you say yes, again, the suffering drains out of the experience, and thus the experience goes from one that is potentially very painful to being actually not that bad. Because I'm not saying no, this doesn't have a place. And I want to point to something you said earlier, which is just the I guess the depth or the heights that this understanding can go. So in these, what you could call prophetic times that we're living in, there's a lot of fear circulating in certain circles. There's a lot of fear you see anytime you turn on the news. They're just feeding you contractions. And really, even if the bombs fall, the robots take over, China just launches a bunch of battleships and we're all fucked. Guess what? Can we say yes? Can we open to that as a way of purifying, in my words, the kingdom of God? We're purifying it by saying, yes, this is okay. Because all of a sudden, even if the bombs are falling, when I say yes, I am still in heaven. I still am. Bombs are still falling. And yes, it's painful. If I see the people I love die, that fucking hurts. That does not mean I'm not in the kingdom of God still. It's another part of the theater of this place, the juiciness of it, recognizing there is no real self here. You are creation in entirety, and creation wants to walk this theater. It wants to hurt sometimes.
Yeah. It
wants to, and can we let it? Because when I move beyond the separate self, what is death? What is death? Because really, when I'm everything, what dies? Oh, this form, this body, this mind, I know what I am. Creation, take it whenever. I know I'm you. So whenever you're done with this, sick, I trust.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that change your relationship to even your own death?
Yeah, there's the opening verse of the Recognition Sutras, the Pratyabhigna Hridaya, is a tantric scripture, says the goddess, and the goddess is often used as a metaphor for the everything. You know, it's everything is her. Mm-hmm. And again, this is where you get these like kind of erotic love story themes that really like slowly became a lot more about the human erotic romantic thing, and kind of missing the real overstory that was metaphor for what's going on here, is that the goddess in her totality chose to become the manifestation of everything. Mm. So she is my dying mother. Mm. She is my ending relationship. Mm-hmm. She is the ecstasy of the birth of my child. She is the lovemaking between me and my partner. Not just is she those things, but she said, she looked at the void, which in Tantra, the void is not quite empty. It's actually like full to the brim with possibility. It's everything that could be, but has not yet happened. And she looked into the void at every single thing that could ever exist, which includes every beautiful thing and every horrible thing, looked at all of it and said, yes. She said, yes, I want to become all of it. And consciousness, Shiva, said, okay, you do that. And I just want to hold it all. I just want to hold every single thing that you could ever be. And I want to penetrate it with my approval.
Wow.
I want to penetrate it with my delight.
Give me chills, just so you know. So dope. So dope.
And so, like, you know, I heard these teachings, you know, as it goes, I heard these teachings for a long time, and they like rattled around in my brain and in my heart and in my body. And then at some point, this is where like this thing we've been talking about really clicked for me. I was like, if it's true that the goddess, the everything, the capital L life chose to become me, what the fuck am I doing trying to get out of this? What the fuck am I doing saying no to my experience? What the fuck am I doing trying to have something else happen than what the goddess has chosen?
Yes. That's praise. That's devotion. That's worship to creation and divinity. By you just saying yes to yourself.
Yeah.
Like that is the best prayer you can put out into the world. And it's the most transformative prayer you can have in your own life.
Yeah. Because like for people to feel in their own body, and like, you know, you could say it's all just a metaphor and a story to shift our unconscious and all, but like for people to feel like God, goddess, source, consciousness, void, whatever lens you want to look through reality at, chose, like thought of the idea of Ben, this one or this one, we're both Ben. But like we started out in the mind of God, or in the heart of the goddess, just like the throbbing desire for life to express its totality was like, I want to be that thing. Like I'm so fucking psyched.
Yeah.
To incarnate as this.
Right.
And it's not like to build up my ego of like, oh, I must be really fucking great then. It's like, it's really humbling when you really get it, when it really clicks. Yes. It's so humbling.
And there's a distinction there, because it's like if your ego says, oh, I am all of creation, and your little self is still clinging to that fabricated idea, right, then you're still going to be kind of trapped in suffering and have kind of a distance from you and the divine. Where what I'm hearing is actually we can honor the ego. We honor it, see it as an almost, for me, it's like an artistic expression of source. and I see it and I know, oh, that's what I'm living in right now. That's the theater that I'm experiencing is Ben Duffy right now in 2025. Again, it's like a snowflake. It only comes once, completely unique.
Totally.
And at the same time, can we hold that truth as far as, yes, I am Ben. I'm clearly Ben Duffy. And can we hold the counter truth that is, I am also the ineffable. I am completely everything and beyond everything. And the mind, the normal human mind, wants to cling to one or the other.
Yes.
And that is the fundamental delusion in Buddhism. Actually, it can be both and simultaneously neither. And in a sense, instead of finding some solid ground to stand on for the ego, which is, I'm Ben or I'm everything, we move beyond solid certainty and into the both and neither range where we can float. And for me, again, you can try on perspectives based on what's called for in a given circumstance. Like if I'm working with a bunch of just normal folks, if I'm a therapist, I'm Ben for the most part. I'm Ben Duffy, the therapist. There's a functional component to that. And obviously we can get it's necessary. And then when I'm like solo in the mountains, tripping on like 5 grams of mushrooms, I'm definitely not Ben in the traditional sense. Like there's something much more profound that, could put tears in my eyes right now talking about it.
Yeah.
And again, being able to be both void and full of ego. And again, we can start to merge the ego with the void, where I can see it, I can honor it as me, and I can also see beyond it. And that's like the ultimate permission slip to be authentically who you are. Because who is this ego? Where did it come from? Who made it? It's a mask. It's an expression crafted by the hands of God.
Right.
And can I honor that? And the desires that are just naturally, spontaneously coming through me. Because again, it really does seem if anything was ever going to be satanic, it's the rejection of yourself.
It's the rejection of life.
Period.
It's the rejection of life. That's like the only definition I'm willing to like give to that word is it's actually an inversion of life or repression of life. And again, coming all the way back to where we were a while ago, that this cultural repression of sexuality that shows up in basically every culture throughout time and space and human history since at least the agricultural revolution. Before that, we were just running around eating berries, fucking each other. We didn't really have a self-concept or a story. And
Eden type situation.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Which that's a whole rabbit hole. We're gonna
dude, I can't wait to have more conversations with you. I'm like, you're sick.
But
dude.
When you can convince people that the naturally arising current of life that just wants to move through you like wind moves through a flute and makes music, that thing is bad. Now if I can convince you to believe that, that's like, to me, that's the original sin. That the way life is organically moving through you is somehow wrong and needs to be fixed, needs to be corrected, needs to be constrained or brought into alignment. Because if I can get you to believe that, then I can replace, with mind control, essentially. I can put a little program in your brain and your body will now conform to that. And if I can do that, I can get society to do whatever I want. If I'm the king or the patriarch or the president or whatever. And so it makes sense to me, even though it saddens me, why sexuality has been so heavily repressed throughout time and space and history, because anybody who's authentically connected to their own erotic existence, the way that life moves up through a flower or a tree is the same way it wants to move up through you and simply be expressed. People who are in contact with that are damn near impossible to control.
Facts, exactly. And that brings me to this point of sexuality and power. Our spiritual power is directly tied to our sexuality. And when that is repressed, our spiritual prowess, as well as just the hands of God are now being limited. And like all of a sudden we're living a shell of an experience. And why do you think we're in a mental health crisis? Because our power has been zapped from us by certain manipulative forces that have been conditioning us to think we're fucking wrong. There's something bad with me. We have this original sin. What a fucking toxic idea. Again, it's just like, I just see it in our culture today. And, I love Christianity too. I love Christ. Like, the words of Christ are profound, and there's nothing like it, actually, that I found. Even in Eastern, well, there's similar saints in Eastern traditions, let's say that. But there's something very sneaky, dark, and manipulative about the way that people manipulate those words in order to oppress actually spiritual power. And recognizing, again, when I say this is the kingdom of God, I mean, again, everything is fundamentally perfect as it is. How could it be anything else? Do you think there's something wrong with the flow of creation? You, little you, think there's something wrong with the flow of creation? Really? Okay. Can we move beyond that again to recognize the perfection in all of it simply by saying yes and opening? Andrew Holacek, shout out Andrew Holacek, one of my favorite Tibetan teachers.
He's great. I
would love to have him on the show, actually. But anyways, he says the whole spiritual path could be summarized as just learning how to relax and open. Just to what's coming through you. Yes, there's all of these traditions, these paths, these insights, these stories and understandings, but just relax and open here now.
And that's where the teachings of Shiva, the archetype of Shiva, of spaciousness, of consciousness, like, especially when we can even just, for the sake of theoretical exploration, get out of our story of self, get out of our individual perception of the way things look from my view is the same thing as what reality is. And just think of like space. Space is just out there, empty, holding space, just allowing everything to exist. And here's a little moon orbiting a planet, and here comes a comet, and it smashes into that moon. And space isn't like, fuck, that shouldn't have happened.
Right. Space still holds it.
Like when we depersonalize all of it, it's actually, for hundreds of millions of years, dinosaurs exist, and then here comes this comet, and now they don't exist. And space wasn't like, shit.
Right.
That's not what I had in mind, because space doesn't have anything in mind. And that's where you realize, like, not just like my in the moment yes and no are completely like fucking over my experience of life, but also as soon as I look into the future and think I know what's going on, where it's all going to happen. Like one of the fascinating aspects of one of the fruits of practice that I find most fascinating is that, and I heard my teacher say this once, and it tracks with my own experience, that you get harder to surprise and harder to startle. Like literally just like I said this once to my kids, and they've like made it a game over years to try and startle me when I come in the door, and they get so excited when they can. But like truly, like just understanding like how unconsciously we're always trying to guess based on the past what the future is going to be like. And then when whatever that is doesn't happen, our system's like, whoa, what just happened? And so, I mean, even startling itself, like, oh, I walk in my front door and my brain thinks it's usually quiet when I walk in the front door, and suddenly something jumps out and makes a big noise. It's my kid. To the degree that I'm unconsciously or consciously believing in my own projection of the future is the degree to which it will just completely rock me to my core when something else happens. Boom. And that alone is actually just like if all you care about is having a better experience of being alive, and you don't give a shit whether or not you realize you're God, it's still worth practicing this stuff. Because literally just being able to have unexpected things happen, and you're just like, oh, this is what's happening now. Exactly. Cool.
The beauty of no expectation. Recognizing if I
like
expect
you cannot be surprised if you aren't expecting anything.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like how much of our suffering is dependent on I expected it to be good and it's not great, or I expected it to be bad and it is worse or whatever. Just expectations leading to suffering. What happens when we have none of those? And I want to actually foreshadow our next episode, because I would love to do another episode with you on specifically the men's groups and men's dynamics. And you spoke a little bit about Shiva and Shakti. So the goddess kind of manifesting in everything. And then Shiva being what we could call the void, to hold her. And I think that is such a beautiful, poetic, imaginal expression of, again, this masculine and feminine duality, where there's the chaotic feminine, which is everything that is.
Which by the way is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of gets thrown under the bus a lot. The chaotic side of the feminine, like she's just supposed to be like, you know, demure and sweet and nice all the time. And, you know, Kali is just like sitting there with a necklace of skulls and a severed head and a scimitar and blood dripping off her tongue.
Literally.
And she's like, I'm sorry, did you want me to put on a sundress?
That's sick, dude. Exactly. That's not going to happen, bro. And can we honor that?
Right. And again, that's where Tantra is always collapsing the dualities. Like we look at the light side of the feminine, we're like, oh, that's good. And then the wildness, the chaos, the hurricanes, the raging waves, the storms, all the shit that we didn't want to happen, that happens anyways. And we're like, oh, that's bad.
Yes.
Kali represents destruction, and that's bad. And Tantra is like, no. If you get out of your own fucking head and just look at the world and say, what is it? And then say, okay, yes.
Yep.
Like it's only you know, in some way I started having these realizations before I ever even found Tantra. And it was actually I don't know if I was just ready for it, you know, but it was with the birth of my first child. And here's this like sweet little thing that means the world to me. And I just like could not hide behind a lens of bullshit that obviously she's going to live past the point where I live.
Yeah.
And I was like, I live in a world where kids get hit by cars. I live in a world where kids get cancer. And I can, like my capacity to love her can't be by maintaining a delusion that those things don't happen. So I can either fall in love with life as it actually exists, or I can live inside of my own delusion and then be surprised and be outraged when something happens, even though I am surrounded by evidence that that is in fact the world we are in.
Being honest.
Being honest. And like my teacher said, just becoming intimate with reality. Exactly. Like, wow, I actually just really know what's going on here. And some of it fucking hurts and some of it's amazing.
What happens to anxiety when you've already played out worst case scenario? Hit by a car, cancer, you've already gone there mentally. Right. And you've learned how to hold that. All of a sudden, those things can't touch you in the same way. Right. You don't have to run. You don't have to drink yourself to sleep. You can still hold it all. And again, it's like you can really show up for that person that you love here in the present because you're not being distracted by, oh, what if? You can still be with them, open your heart to all of it. And that includes the pain and the love, potentially. Right.
And again, with like the surprise thing, if I'm neither expecting that my kid's going to live past the point where I die, nor am I expecting that something terrible is going to happen. I'm actually not expecting anything. I'm just meeting life as it arrives.
Yeah. Hands off.
Yeah. Just, I mean, but it's not disengaged. Like that's, you know, that's where I think some people take these teachings and they just like, you know, hands off the wheel, close your eyes and find out where the car goes. It's like, no, I still give a shit. You know, Tantra actually strangely is not against attachment.
Exactly.
Like attachment's beautiful. It's an expression of meanings. Like I do want to be in long, beautiful relationship with my children, with my partner, with the people in my life that are meaningful to me. I am attached to that. But I'm not deluding myself that because I want it to last for a long time, that it is going to last for a long time. And I've already chosen to experience the pain of something that's meaningful to me ending.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's opening to the pain as well.
Yeah.
And recognize you can't have that love without the pain. Everything here is impermanent, coming and going. And where there is love, there will have to be the pain of that loss of that which you love. Right. Including this form, this body, the people that we love. All of it will turn to dust. All of it. The mountains, this earth itself will become dust, you know, relatively in a blink of an eye. Right. Time is, you know, relative. We make it. And that's the thing. Can we accept that? For me, it's like, how deep do you want to dive into love? Recognizing that means you're diving into grief and pain as well. And it's up to you. It's up to you. Right. How deeply do you want to open yourself to this place? And again, when you can allow and say yes, the pain and the pleasure can start to merge and we're not separating ourselves. One teacher said, the problem isn't the dream. The problem is you like one part of the dream and not the other.
Right.
I like the love. I don't like the grief and the loss. Boom. Okay. Then you're creating duality, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart, if you say so. And we can merge the two and come back to that place right as we are. And I know we're at time. I have a client coming up, but I want to just say thank you so much, Ben. This was one of my favorite conversations thus far. Nice. And I would love to do another one with you. We didn't even touch on men's groups, and we were going to discuss the title of Spiritual Fuckboy, and I think I can't wait to discuss that.
We'll get back to it.
We will. Do you want to plug yourself? Shout out, yourself, what you do?
Yeah, man. So pretty much everything I do can either be found on my Instagram, which is It's Ben Raya, or on the website for the work I do with my partner, which is authenticessence.co. We teach couples work, we teach men's work. She's going to start leading women's work. We teach a lot of Tantra work from a 2-day fundamentals kind of first step onto the path kind of material, as well as just led a 5-day immersion into really deep, esoteric, powerful stuff. So we're bringing through the whole spectrum. And I also just want to shout out my teacher, Christopher Wallace, also known as Harish. I've referenced him a few times, but just wanted to give my gratitude for him. He's the reason I have anything eloquent to say about any of this.
Beautiful.
So highly recommend people checking him out as well.
Beautiful. Well, Ben, this is the first of many conversations.
Hell yeah.
And
it's actually the second, but this one wasn't in a sauna.
Exactly. This is the first recorded conversation. The first one would have been dope to record too.
For sure.
Let's be honest. But thank you guys for watching. This is Spiritual Fuckboy. I'm your host, Benjamin Duffy, and we will see you next time.